Hi, my name is Imogen, and today I wanted to talk about The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. This book is really timely right now, obviously with the Black Lives Matter movement and the civil unrest going on. And I don't want to seem like I'm just kind of getting on the bandwagon and trying to solicit views over such an important movement, but I do think that it is very important to raise awareness and empathy for people that have been overlooked and their voices haven't been heard. If you're unaware, The Nickel Boys is based on real events. There was a reformatory school in Florida that literally was horrible. It abused the boys physically and sexually and emotionally, and it didn't close until 2011. There were 55 bodies exhumed from the school when it closed. So it was just a horrible, god-awful place that was allowed to exist for way too long. When it closed down, people that were alumni and students of that school back in the 60s and 70s went back just to watch the school close, if that gives you any insight into what a crappy place it was. So this book takes place during the civil rights movement. The main character, Elwood, looks to Martin Luther King as his hero and who he wants to be like. But the problem is that the Jim Crow laws are still heavily enforced, especially in the South, like in Florida. And he is robbed of the future that he should have been given, because Elwood was going to go to college, but instead, because of the incompetency of the legal system, ended up in this reformatory school. While he's in Nickel, he meets a friend named Turner, who is kind of a really good counterpoint character to him, because while Elwood has this thinking of we need to be activists and our voices need to be heard and we can make a difference in this world, Turner is kind of the world is a really corrupt place and you just kind of need to survive and get by. And if you do all of that activist stuff, he thought that was kind of stupid because it was going to get Elwood into a lot of trouble. Another really interesting character is Jamie. He's Latino, I think his mom is Mexican, and because he's neither white or black, the school has no idea where to put him because you have two different campuses, there's the white area and the black area, and they're constantly literally just sending him back and forth between the two. And I thought that was a really good voice to add to the story to kind of make it a little more well-rounded and defined, where it's not the whole world isn't just black and white. There's a lot of diversity, and when you separate people into just black and white, you're overlooking a huge group of human beings. And the way that Colson Whitehead writes Nickel Academy, it kind of becomes an entity of its own. It's almost like a character in and of itself that represents so much of what is wrong with society, and it shows just how oppressed these children are by the system. I don't know how I can convey just how well Colson Whitehead gets you into the voices of these characters or the minds of these characters and helps you understand and feel for them so much. It's just a very well told story. I have a quote here that I thought was interesting from an article that I will link to down below from the Washington Post. It's basically all about the history of the actual school and the atrocities that it goes through different years of all the atrocities that it performed and its impacts on the students who were actually there. And one of the people that were a former student of that school was Jerry Cooper, and he said, "Why would you make a fiction book? This is just me, out of something so horrible?" And I thought that was such an interesting point. It says that Jerry was there as a teenager in 1961 and he was whipped with a strap 135 times. And he says that he is going to read it. It says, "No matter how the word gets out about what happened at the school, it should just get out. I appreciate Whitehead doing this story." I think Colson Whitehead's choice of making it fiction allows him to have a little more creative liberty and not just defining the experience to one character. It allows you to add characters like Jamie, and I think having Elwood and Turner contrast each other so well makes for a really well-defined and well-rounded story that you might not have gotten otherwise. And I think that there is a huge plot twist at the end that for at least me, really threw me off guard. I did both listening to this on Audible and reading it in person because I was doing it for an assignment for school. So sometimes when I was driving, I was running behind on schedule. I would listen to the audiobook, but the narrator for the audiobook is really good. So I'll have a link to that down in the description below. The link actually is for Audible. If you click it, you get a free audiobook. One thing that I have to say this book does really well is it shows how just because laws change doesn't mean that racism is over. it shows how racism is in people's minds, and it's a very deeply entrenched thing into this system, and how difficult it is to exactly pinpoint it. Because, you know, Elwood lived at a time where the laws were changing and he saw hope for the future for his people. But then throughout the story and his experience at Nickel, he also saw the reality of just how difficult it is to change the minds of racist people. I had to read this book last semester, and even though it was, you know, a book for an assignment, and sometimes it's hard when you're on a time schedule to get into some of the books that your teachers assign you, I just really fell in love with this book. I also thought it was really cool of my professor to give us something that was just recently published in 2019, and then after the semester ended, towards the end of the semester, she sent out an email saying that it won the Pulitzer Prize. So it was really exciting to, you know, read a book in school that's so timely and so relevant right now. So in conclusion, buy this book. I'll link to it down in the description below, both the audio and on Amazon. I think that if you're trying to cultivate more empathy in yourself, if you're trying to understand a narrative that is not from your own culture and your own background, and if you're trying to get in touch with the history of this country and some of the darker aspects of it, I think it's a really fantastic read. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and if you want to see more, you can check out, I have 2 videos over yonder somewhere, A Little Sacrifice by Andrzej Sapkowski and That Evening Sun by William Faulkner. Thanks for watching.